All right, welcome back to another episode of Rut Fresh. I'm Jake Hofer, and we have 3 big buck stories and updates from Kansas, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. And we're getting deeper into the month of November. Thanksgiving is just right around the corner, and I think this is one thing for everyone to consider. When the calendar switches to December, we're going to be wishing it was November again. So a lot of the advice and updates here throughout this episode is to remember it's November. Remember this is the time we've been waiting for, and to keep at it and keep just plugging away. Just keep plugging away. And I hope there's some great intel here for you folks in this episode. As you know, Rut Fresh is brought to you by Lane.com, the leading online real estate marketplace to find your perfect rural, recreational, agricultural, or hunting properties here in the U.S. My challenge for you guys this week is just to keep positive mindset, keep out there working hard, keep scouting. Don't be afraid to call an audible on your game plan, and just give November everything you got on what you can do. I know for myself personally, it's getting to the point of the year where I'm starting to feel a little guilty for hunting really hard. Responsibilities are falling on the wayside, but we're going to be missing this time period. So do what you can. If you can walk, walk. If you can crawl, crawl. And let's kick this off with Anthony Warren in Kansas, who just shot his personal best buck. Here we go. All right, first up on the line, we have Anthony Warren, who just shot a personal best. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Pretty close. I don't score a ton of my deer, but he's definitely going to be in contention, and I'm super stoked about it. He was a real nice, basically mainframe 8. So just a giant body of a deer, and just really great rack for an 8-point anywhere, really.
Yeah, no. And that was in Kansas, right?
Yes, yeah, it was.
Okay. So Kansas big buck has hit the dirt. Talk a little bit about, I know you had previous encounters with that deer in the past, but how did it come together here recently?
Yeah, this season's been probably a little slower, and I don't know what everybody else is talking about their experiences, but so far it's just seemed like everything's been pretty late. And the week leading up to that, I was actually in Illinois, and it was almost dead there. Cameras were telling me that deer on my farm in Kansas were starting to move. And there's not really a whole lot of secret sauce that goes into this one. A little bit of strategy on my part when it comes to the deer moving, and kind of what I thought was going to happen. Mixed with some good fortune of some really cold days. Last week, but really, it just has seemed overall to me that the rut has been like a slow start off this year. Like they just haven't really been after it like they have in the past years this early. But I think we're kind of getting into that. But for this buck in particular, last year I actually shot this deer on November the 8th. And I rattled the deer in, and he came in super mad and heated, and just rubbing up against every sapling on the way in. And nerves kind of got the best of me. He circled in kind of wide, trying to get downwind, and I ended up skimming the top of his back. And so I just tried to stay on him all season, and just never materialized. But this year, fortunately, I think he came back a little bit bigger frame. And I had him at a couple of locations where I was running feed. And really for me, if you hold does, and you can, have food for does, you're going to have bucks around.
Mm-hmm.
And historically, this deer has hung out on me from the months of October all the way through February. So, I think the night before I saw the deer on a trail camera, probably 100 yards from where I shot him, and where I had hunted the evening before. And it was after dark, and I said, well, tomorrow is going to be the coldest morning so far of the month. And I'm just going to be between where he was last night and where he could be going. And it kind of was a strategy that proved to be, beneficial. With that being said, kind of leading up the night before I shot him, I had a really great encounter with a 3.5-year-old 10-point, just real pretty. And he was dogging a group of does that was, I don't know, there were probably 8 to 10 does in this group. And One thing that I banked on the next morning going back to this spot is that previous hunt before I killed them, I saw all these does and they were just peeing all over the place. And I was like, man, what a better place to be than, where a bunch of does have peed. Now a buck is bound to be over in this area wanting to scent check that. And so sure enough, the next morning, that I ended up shooting him, I watched him come all the way across the field towards some does and some feed that I had. And he would stop at every single location that I had kind of mentally bookmarked that a doe had stopped and urinated. And he was just nose down, and he'd run to the next spot, and then he'd be nose down, and then he just came full sprint and just run. And it was pretty gnarly to see such a big frame buck doing that, especially for that first daylight. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that was kind of how that unfolded. But really, just the history of knowing where this buck liked to be, and then kind of putting myself between 2 points of interest where I thought he would be, and then kind of being around where I knew does wanted to be was kind of the name of the game. And I'd actually never hunted this particular part of the farm before. It just doesn't really lend itself to being a great killing spot, but I was obviously pleasantly surprised. I was able to intercept him between two major points, so it all worked out.
Yeah, man. No, that's what we all hope for. And uh, I think paying attention to the does, right? Like a lot of this stuff, the advice necessarily doesn't change year to year, but you still have to key in on that. Like, okay, there was a bunch of does in here, and it's that simple. Sometimes, obviously, there's a little bit of luck, a little bit of mental fortitude to be set up and be ready to rock and roll. But man, what an incredible buck, and congratulations. Now, for guys that have been struggling, maybe they're in the part of the season where it's like, okay, I've been hunting a deer and now I need to call an audible, or I don't want to lower my standards necessarily, but I do want to potentially shift around. And so now it's November 19th and all the really exciting dates that are, everyone has a favorite day. There's not too many people that say, my favorite day is November 19th. So, with all that being said, we're leading up to Thanksgiving now. What's on the top of your mind for any of the tags on your pocket in your pocket here as we, get deeper into November?
Yeah. Well, kind of adding on to what I said earlier, I truly feel like we're probably 7 to 9 days behind a typical rut schedule. I've talked to guys that I met when I was hunting in Illinois, and they felt kind of the same way. I'm still talking to buddies who are still trying to get it done in Kansas. They kind of feel the same way. Um, Based on what I know right now, at the time of us sitting down for this, bucks are chasing. And I had seen, even 2 days ago before I left Kansas, that bucks were starting to chase, but I had not been seeing really much more than 3.5 to 4.5 year old deer. So I know that I had a buddy that had a 170 that was locked on a doe a couple of days ago. So I definitely think we are in everybody's kind of like, mentally their favorite days, but we're just a little behind. It's not November the 7th or November the 5th. I feel like we're kind of a week late. With that being said, my true gut feeling on this doesn't really change. I think you just need to be where those are going to be. So
Hmm.
that can be bedding, that can be food, that can be a bedding to food pattern. If you can be somewhere between those two things, and depending on where you're going to be at in the country, obviously out in Kansas, it never hurts to be in a pinch point between two bedding areas or close to a food source.
Hmm.
Um, Again, my gut tells me that we are kind of in what I would consider like peak moving, right into the lockdown stage of the rut in a lot of places across the country. But I do have a couple of gun tags coming up for the next few weekends, and really my strategy is just to be in tight corridors and between bedding.
Hmm.
And if you can be in that situation, it's probably going to be the best place to be until you know I'd say mid December, where deer are going to start shifting back toward food. But I still think if you're a guy and you're discouraged and you haven't seen a shooter buck yet, like it's just about logging hours right now, because at this point in time you can't just rely on like the pre-rut or those kind of tactics. Like what you really need is you just need to be in a place where a doe is going to walk by and lead a big buck. And that's frustrating, and it makes for long hours. And I've been there where you just hate it, and you feel like such a bum sitting up in the tree, and you're like, man, what am I doing here? I'm driving myself crazy. And then at 11, 10 a.m., everything changes because a doe walks by with a mature buck right behind her. So those things have a proclivity of happening this time of year. It's just going to be about like, can you last through the grind? I don't always love an all day sit, but if you were going to do an all day sit, now might be the time to do that. And then moving in toward the next week or so, I still feel really strongly about that. Time on stand is time towards success.
I like that. I like that. Yeah. No, I think it's easy to get discouraged because I've logged a bunch of all day sits hunting a specific deer, and man, it's starting to. I've actually enjoyed the process a bunch, but I feel we had a guest last week that said right when you're about to give up is usually when you find success. So I think that advice rings true. For the whole season, just don't give
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, hopefully as we get closer to the Thanksgiving weekend, I still really like those dates a lot.
Yeah.
I still see a lot of really good movement. And depending on where you're at in the country, like I even see a lot of breeding still happening in the first 2 weeks of December. It begins to taper down,
Hmm.
but like really, really until you start talking about around Christmas time, I think you're really in the game as long as you are willing to stick it out. So hopefully, as the holidays are coming up, guys can get more time off work and just log more hours. And that's really, I just think this time of year, unless you have one just absolutely pinned down, which I don't think anybody does, just the amount of time, that you can be in the woods is going to make the determining factor. And another thing I do like about really this upcoming week that I didn't say earlier is there's going to be a chance that guys see really big deer that they have absolutely no history with because all of a sudden, you know, that buck may have bred does in his home range or summer range and like you hear a lot of guys talk about summer ranges versus fall ranges and but I'm a firm believer that whether you have a deer that lives on one particular property or not, like there is going to be some crossover where some bucks come in and they start looking for new doe. So, another gut feeling is that really over the next week or so, you're going to start to see a buck just show up at random, and that's really where it's going to pay off just to be in the stand because it's going to be one of the most frustrating things to see that deer on camera and then you missed him, because you weren't there. And
Yeah.
you'll never see that deer again. And that happens every single year where I see giant bucks and I'm like, dude, where did that deer even come from? I've never seen him. And then you never see him again. It's just because he's frantic looking for, the last available doe. And then he's probably going to go back to wherever his home range was, and then kind of settle down for the year. Maybe try to breed a few yearling does that come in late, and then really just focus on food at that point. But that's kind of the last big point I think I make is over the next week. You just don't know what's going to happen. You could end up having a chance at that one that you've looked at all year, or you could have the neighbor's 160 run over from a couple miles away and be in your lap. It's just a matter of if you're there or not.
Yeah, I love it. That's great advice. Wonderful advice. So, looking here in the next week, leading up to Thanksgiving, scale 1 to 10, 10 being best week of the year, 1 being one of the worst weeks of the year. Where do you put the potential big buck activity?
Yeah. You know, I couldn't give it a 10 because I just think that deer are going to be locked on does right now. But it will be tapering off. So I'm still going to be pretty optimistic and say probably somewhere around an 8.5 to 9.
Hmm.
With the deer being locked on, you got to be committed to long hours in the stand, because you just never know when something's going to change. But with that being said, I still think there's a really good chance that we are in the best week right now, and then over the next 7 to 10 days, it's still going to remain high. You're going to be somewhere around an 8, and it's going to feel like a 10 for some guys, and some guys it's going to feel like a 5. Um, but that's just kind of the nature of this year. Um, you just have to, you just kind of have to be where they want to be and where they are at that particular moment to make it happen.
100%. Well, congratulations once again, man. That was an awesome buck. Congratulations. And hopefully, good luck to everyone else out here that's got a tag in their pocket and you have some words of encouragement and advice to help them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck to everybody this season. And I know I got a couple tags remaining. My bow season kind of got cut short. I dislocated my shoulder, so I'm picking up. I just bought a crossbow last night, so I got to become a crossbow hunter the rest of the year. So,
Well, you at least you're out there, and hopefully your shoulder heals up too, because I know you're probably not enjoying that.
no, it was a bummer. I've been through the ringer on it, but yeah, I mean, good luck to everybody, and just log those hours if you can, and yeah, call in sick, do whatever you got to do to get out in the woods. But good luck to everybody. I think we're about in the thick of it right now.
Wonderful, man. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Lane with In the Presence Hunt. Lane, how's it going?
Oh, good, buddy. How you doing?
It's doing great. I know you shot a giant Pennsylvania buck. How was that?
Oh, it was wild, man. Yeah, just an absolute unit, man. It was insane. I found him in the summer, and then he shifted on me like once Velvet came off, and I was able to pick him back up, and pretty much just waited till the conditions were right and slid in and killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many times when you say waited for the conditions were right and slid in there and killed them, was that like a multiple cat and mouse game, or was it like, nah, it just worked?
It just worked, to be honest with you. Like when
man.
I said I picked him back up, like I didn't even have any trail cams up there. I never got another picture of him. Like once Velvet came off, I just kind of had a feeling he was in this clear cut that I found where he was like living close by in the summer. So I kind of flipped to the other side of it and found a whole lot of rut sign, like old historical rut sign, and I knew I just had to be in there like when the conditions were right. So like I said, I found that spot probably October, or like went in and scouted it and found exactly where I needed to be like early October. And then I tried it one more time right before the day I killed him. But I just tried it like further on down a little bit. And then, it just set up perfect the morning I killed him. Northwest wind. It was cold. It was later on in October. It just set up perfect.
Yeah.
But I was actually supposed to leave for Illinois that day, but I really wanted to try to hunt this buck and kill him. And yeah, I did it. So it was freaking awesome, man. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's super cool. What have you been seeing for rut activity here in the last couple of days? I mean, do you feel like we're starting to maybe break through lockdown, or and I hate to categorize it because I know every area and everything's a little bit different, but for people listening, what have you been seeing here for activity here the last couple of days?
Yeah, I definitely think they're all a little bit more on lockdown right now. Like I drove past my grandma's house just probably 3 or 4 days ago, and there's 2 roads on each side of it, and there's just pretty much a field with like a little fence row, and I seen a buck and a doe out there, and he was a good buck, so definitely locked down right now. And then you can still catch bucks moving, once they done breeding their doe, but you just got to get tight to bedding is my best advice to anyone who's hunting right now.
Yeah. Get tight to bidding. And then as far as, the 19th leading up to Thanksgiving, I feel like this when people are digging deep, man. Like more than likely people have been hunting pretty hard. And what advice do you have for those folks that are still trying their darnest and they feel like maybe the best has already been behind them and it's like still good.
Yeah.
But the fatigue, and I feel like that's such a cheesy way to say it, but like the fatigue of the season is definitely setting in for people right now.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'd just say keep going, man. Like all it takes is a split second your whole season to change. Like I know it sounds a cliche, but just keep grinding. In my experience, I find a lot of the bigger bucks are moving in like daylight and a lot more towards the end of November. It kind of seems like there's waves of it, but it seems like the majority, historically, what I found is a lot of the bigger deer. I get a lot of show cam pictures of them running does and stuff later on in November. So it's never over, you know what I mean? Until fat lady's singing and you're done for the season. So just keep grinding, man. It could all change in a split second.
Absolutely. And as far as, tight to bedding, you feel that like obviously downwind of predominant bedding areas, are you concerned like deer have probably been kind of messed with, pestered by humans and pestered by little bucks? And it seems like, does are a little bit annoyed. as far as, the increased pressure in the woods and having that in mind, how concerned are you to get tight to bedding, or how much longer does it take to set up, or are you bouncing around from bedding area to bedding area? Um, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just depends, to be honest with you. Yeah, I meant like just add like I'm finding deer right now in just the thickest, nastiest stuff ever, and as far away from human pressure as possible. Like I kayaked in a river today, and it was probably, I don't know, 2 miles from the access. All the deer I bumped were pretty much right next to that river, bedded down, and then there was a little bedding pocket right in there, and I got on the backside of it and bumped a couple more, so just thick, nastiest spots you can find as far away from human pressure as possible.
Mm-hmm. Do you get discouraged when you're bumping deer when you're going in to set up on something new? Like, you throw in the kayak 2 miles and you're like, man, I came all the way back here and I parked my kayak. I walked 10 feet and I busted one right away.
I wasn't even off the kayak and I was blowing deer out. I was so pissed. But yeah, it's one of them things where it's hard not to get pissed, but you just got to think like you're already seeing deer. You're in where deer want to be. Don't hang your head. It's not like the deer are just going to run forever and just be tear off out of the state, out of the country. Like they're still in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. As far as food sources or even, I feel like you can categorize a few strategies people are going to be deploying here for the next couple, the next week, depending on weather. Potentially food sources may have some pull and attraction, and obviously it's dependent on where you're at in the country. Another one would be travel corridors in between bedding areas, and then, tight to bedding. And you think tight to bedding is probably your best approach for this time period leading up to Thanksgiving?
Yeah, for right now. And then once late season comes in, I kind of shift to food, you know what I mean? But as of right now, dude, tight to bedding is my best advice. Like, downwind side of bedding, let bucks either cruise to you or come in the bedding area and check it out, or maybe even they're found a doe in there and they'll squirt out, it just really just depends. But tight to bedding always has seemed to be the key for me. So,
do you think it even carries more merit this time of year than earlier, or like how would you rank that in terms of, specifically this upcoming week?
What, tight to bedding? I would say, I mean, it just really depends. Like early season, morning sits, I'm tight to bedding too. October, early October, late October, I'm tight to bedding. Like I'd say the majority of the things I'm tight to bedding right now. It sounds stupid to say. It sounds like I'm just saying like a bunch of rubbish, but like, dude, that's where I'm finding them, is just tight to bedding, man. Like they're just out and about in the bedding areas.
Yeah, and you've had an incredible year. How many bucks have you knocked down this year?
I killed 6.
Yeah, so that's a crazy season, dude.
Yeah. Wild, dude. I can't believe it. The biggest one was that PA one. And then I killed like 140 inch out in Illinois. I killed like 130 velvet in Delaware. And then I killed a decent Kansas buck. He was probably like right about 115, 120 inches. And then I killed like 2 Maryland bucks. I mean, they weren't the biggest bucks in the world, but they're still good deer. Pumped me up, so.
That's an unreal season. And the follow-up question I was, were they all tight to bedding?
Were they all tight to bedding? No. Well, the one was. Not 2 were. Okay, all right. 3. All right, so pretty much 5 of them were, I'd say. Like the last ones were the one I killed early season. Like I killed him September 2nd. That wasn't tight to bedding. I mean, I was still probably 300 yards from bedding, but I was pretty much sitting right next to a soybean field, and they came right down the buffer zone. I shot them in the woods, but I was still probably 300 yards from bedding. From where they were bedded. So yeah. And
for people listening too, when you say tight to bedding, and I'm picturing more eastern hunting in my own head right now. But when you say tight, is that I understand it's situational based off terrain and how close can you really get without, getting busted. But as a rule of thumb, is tight to bedding to you 100 yards, 150 yards, 60 yards, just to give someone a rule of thumb?
Yeah, I'd say under 100 for sure. The closer the better. Closer the better. If you can get right on top of them, if you have a bed picked out, you're bed hunting it, like, get as tight as possible. But yeah, if you're just hunting a general bedding area, like a doe bedding area, I'd say within, 75, 100 yards, I'd say. If you can get closer, by all means, do it, A lot of times you'll find edges right on the edge of the bedding area, and a lot of times I can get right into there. That's the ticket for me.
100%. So looking here the next week, scale 1 to 10, 10 being the best week of the year, 1 being the worst week of the year. November 19th to Blackout Wednesday. Uh, what do you rank this week coming up for rut activity for big bucks?
I'd probably say a 7. I mean, they're definitely on lockdown, but like they're still out and about. And like I said, like the majority of the big bucks I find, pulling trail camps and stuff, like I get a lot in that time frame just moving. You'll see them out with those too, a lot of midday stuff too. So I'd say a 7, depending on how the weather is. If you get a cold snap, it's on fire, man. I'm guaranteed if it's 70 degrees, I'm sure it's going to shut things down a little bit, but they'll still be running at night. But
I like it. Where can people follow along with some of the hunts here that you had this year?
So every hunt I've talked about so far, you can go on our channel, just In the Presence Hunt, pop right up for you. We're also on social media. If you type, Instagram, you type that in, it'll pop right up. Facebook, pop right back, pop up for you. So
awesome,
yeah.
Man. Well, dude, what an incredible season, and good luck the rest of the year. I don't know if there's any more bucks safe with the tear you've been on, but congratulations and good luck the rest of the season.
Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for having me on.
All right, next up we have Shane Albert, who just tagged his personal best buck in the state of Illinois. Shane, how does it feel?
It's a huge relief. I mean, getting a deer down before the Illinois gun season seems like always the goal. So to do it and to do it with a bow on my personal best is, yeah, man, it's been a big weight off the shoulders the last few days.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. So before we get into the story and how it went down and what the activity has been here recently, I'm gonna ask you a tough trivia question. In the state of Illinois, what is the surveyed deer population in the state of Illinois? And it's hundreds of thousands. I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint here.
Yeah. Well, I think I know once upon a time, I think we used to shoot about 100,000 deer, just under 100,000 deer. I think those numbers are down. And I'm going off of memory there. I'm going to do a round number. I'm not going to get the prices right here. I'm going to guess 700,000.
It's actually 290,000.
Oh, wow.
Which seems really, that is, I think that's too low, personally.
Yeah. I just drive at night during November. Feel like I see that many.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about the breakdown here. I know you kind of hunt throughout the state of Illinois, and you had packed up your bags and went to a different part of the state. Break it down, because I think showing up and hunting on the fly is maybe a benefit in November, or maybe a detriment. Obviously worked out for you.
Yeah, it's chaotic for sure, but it is nice to have the option. So I live in Northwest Illinois. I own a small farm up here, and been hunting that pretty hard. Got a good deer on it, and have had a couple encounters with him, but the middle of November, I usually just take a mini rutcation, and then I'll take the gun season. So I had the days off to kind of just bounce around and do what the encounters and the cameras told me. So I hunted hard at home. I had some good encounters with several bucks, and it just wasn't there yet. I wasn't seeing the activity. The mature bucks that I was seeing were not doing what I thought I needed them to do to kill them. And we have I've got an uncle who owns a good farm down in South Central Illinois. It's about 4.5 hours south of me. And my cousin and I hunt that pretty hard, and we manage that one as best as we can. And it's tough for me to get down there as much as I want to, but we spend a lot of time on the food plots and the trail cameras and the box blinds and all that fun stuff. And we did have some good deer on camera. So about that time that my farm was kind of slowing down a little bit, I did decide to pack the bags and head down there. And so I headed down, if you want to just straight into that few days that I had. So I left here on Monday morning, took a morning hunt off, and dropped my kids off at school. And I was like, okay, well, doing the math and stop for lunch and fuel up. And by the time I get there, I'm like, it'll be about time to hop straight into a stand. So the whole drive down there, of course, I'm looking at wind directions and talking to my cousin about where to go. And he's like, I just go to food. We had a big cold snap, heavy winds, a 30-degree temperature drop. He's like, I bet you there's going to be deer on food, and bucks will swing by and see what they can find for does. Right? It's just that time of year. And he nailed it. Give him that credit. I don't want his head to get any bigger than his doorways are, but he called it. And I raced all the way down there, and I'm kidding. I kid you not, Jake. I was pulled up to the parking spot, walked out to the blind. I didn't have the door shut on the blind, and I looked up, and our number one or number two, depending on if I've talked to me or my cousin, was walking into the food plot from the corner, right in front of the blind. And I had my backpack on. An arrow still in the quiver, no release, nothing. I mean, I was literally didn't even have the door shut. So I'm in panic mode, get an arrow knocked. The deer ends up angling towards the blind and cutting at about 50 yards. The wind was so heavy, and he was through a pretty good amount of weeds in the food plot that I was worried about a deflection if I were to shoot one, but not getting a good range on him. And the wind and the panic that I had, I was like, I'm not going to shoot this deer unless he happens to come into, make a move and angle into about 30 yards or less. So he comes in, just got to 50 was about the closest that I was able to get a range on him. And he was able to basically check the whole food plot, didn't see a single doe, and walked out. So that was at 1:30 on Monday afternoon. So I was not expecting that, obviously.
Early. Yeah.
Yeah, very early, and by himself, just doing what big bucks do on, that was November 10th. He was just cruising. My guess, he was between does, and he was looking for his second or third one. By that time of year, it could have been the third even. So bunch of deer come out. He never comes back to check the plot. Had a great hunt. Saw 20 to 30 deer, but no mature bucks ever ended up stepping out. Hunted the next morning in a big timber ridge in a saddle. Saw another pile of deer. Saw a good 3-year-old chasing does right underneath me. Small bucks cruising, and I had an encounter with. Again, now looking. Now that we've got one deer down, I would say that this is the one that I saw Saturday, or I'm sorry,
Monday,
Tuesday morning.
Okay,
Tuesday morning. The one that I saw Tuesday morning, he's probably our number one. Now that I've got what I think our number two is on the ground, but he shows up straight behind me in a saddle. Came in straight downwind. I don't know if he ever got my wind. He never spooked, but the closest he got was about 80 yards. So I got a really good look at him. Saw a big split on one side. Thought it was my deer at first because that was the most distinct thing about him. He's got double split G2s. And so when I saw him on Monday afternoon, I thought this deer on Tuesday morning, same deer. I'm like, I saw a big split running through the woods. I'm like, there he is again. Well, I got some video of him, and we can actually tell he's only got one split on one side. So we're like, that's a different deer. So we kind of have a beat on two different bucks on the same side of the farm now. So my cousin comes down on Tuesday afternoon, and I actually sent him a pin. I'm like, I'm thinking about going right here in my saddle or a hanging hunt situation. And he's like, man, that's about where I was gonna go. And I'm like, all right, no big deal. I'm like, you go there. I was actually thinking about going back to that food plot and doing a hanging hunt. So the big thing on Tuesday afternoon was that we had a wind shift from northwest to southwest, and it was still a very strong wind. So with the south wind, I knew, here's my big takeaway, is that I knew there was a good deer in the area. The odds he was going to do the exact same thing twice were slim. And even if he did and I was in the same spot, he's going to skirt me at 50 yards again, right? So I had to make a move and do something different. So with the south wind, I was able to get on the northwest side of this food plot in the woods just a little bit to where all the deer that enter the food plot come in straight upwind. So if everything happened at the same, I had great wind for it. So that's exactly what I did. So my cousin went to my initial spot I was looking to go. I jumped back over in that food plot that I saw that big deer the night before. And this is where it got chaotic is I got out of the woods for my morning hunt. I went and grabbed a tree stand that I'd hung somewhere else for my hang and bang setup. and I was back at the truck, and I got my bow out. I shot a couple arrows just to pass some time and make sure my bow's good after the, hunting and all the drive and everything. Set my bow on the table. I get all my game plan together, get my tree stand packed up. I head to the woods, and I throw my stand and my pack on, and I'm like, all right, just got to grab my bow and open my back door of my truck, pull my bow out, and it's not there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, left my bow at the cabin. I knew it was sitting right on the table where I left it after I got done shooting. So I'm like, all right. Mind you, I wanted to be in the woods by 1 o'clock since I saw the deer by 1:30 the day before. And so at this point, it's about 12:45. Run back to get my bow, come back. Now I got everything, right? So hike in about 400 yards, get the tree stand hung. I'm not super efficient at doing a hang and hunt yet, but I hang in about 20 minutes or so. I get set up, and I'm not super happy with myself for forgetting my bow. I'm sweaty. It was warmer that day. I was like, I just didn't feel super confident, just all things considered. I was rushed, you know the feeling, and you're covered in sweat. You just hung a stand, straps in the way, and I'm all frustrated. And about that time, I was like, all right, we're here, we're good, we're set up. It was about 1:30 at that point. So of course I'm looking for deer, and I'm like, all right, I got to get my binos out, start glassing, see if this buck's going to come through. And that was about the time that I went in my backpack, realized that my binos are not in my backpack. And so I'm beyond frustrated now. And I think I even texted you that, this is going to be the day that, I think I called it. I said, if this was as clustered as this day was, I was like, this is the day that I'm going to randomly shoot a big deer. Right. Ended up standing there for 10 minutes, trying to look through the woods and see everything that moved that wasn't a deer. And I could not do it. I could not go 10 minutes without binos. And I was like, you know what? The other than that big deer, the other deer that came out was at 309. It is I think it was 145. I said, I got plenty of time. Let's just go ahead and go get those binos. So I got down, went and got the binos and the rangefinder, mind you. The rangefinder's also in there. And I get back in the woods, and I remember time stamping this because I'd sent a buddy a text message about forgetting my binoculars at 2:04. And I turn around to get some water out of my backpack because I was sweating like crazy. Just a walk. I went to grab a water. So I turn around and I see a deer walking through the woods. And I was like, that's a big bodied deer. I got the binos that I just had to have. I got those binos up, and I realized I saw the double splits, and I was like, there he is. He's doing it. And so he comes and angles through the woods. And this is another part of it that I've reflected a lot on, that I've evolved as a hunter, and I've gotten better, is that when I realized that I was in the game, I really focused on how things went from there up into the shot and post shot, instead of just getting overwhelmed with a big buck and the rack and the moment. I really harnessed everything, and I executed as best as I could. And by that, I mean, he was angled towards me, but I didn't just watch the deer. I really looked at the route he was taking and all the possibilities that he could go. And I remember thinking vividly, like, he's going to come check this food plot. But looking at the edge of this food plot, it is full of multiflora rows, and it is thick. So that limits them. It kind of funnels them to the corners of the food plot, and he's angled to the corner that I'm sitting on. So I start ranging shooting lanes, and I realize, I'm like, okay, there's going to be one at 41. There's going to be one at 33. And if he takes this way, I'll have a chip shot. So I'm doing all that stuff as he's coming in about 70 yards and he's angled to me. So instead of just watching the deer walk through the woods, while I had time, I start planning what's going to happen. I try to predict multiple scenarios. And sure enough, he comes to the right angle, and he comes to 41. And I start to realize, I'm like, sure, I could shoot him at 41, but the multiple rows is going to funnel him even closer. So 5 years ago, I might have just said, I got a shot, take it. Mm-hmm. But he was upwind. I put this stand in the perfect spot for this wind. He had no idea I was there. I mean, zero clue. He was just doing buck things in November. Just checking out. He wasn't moving fast. He was just checking out, nose to the ground, see when he could smell and see, right? Comes up to 35 yards straight at me, rubs on a cedar, gives me even more time to play out different scenarios. I ranged everything that I could. Of course, bow's in hand, release is hooked, and I'm ranging everything I can. And I said 90% chance he's going to take this angle and he's going to go right between those two trees at 33 yards. And that's exactly what he did. So everything was played out perfect. The deer walks into the shooting lane. I draw as he gets to the first tree. The deer did not stop naturally in the shooting lane, so I gave him the map. And the mistake that I made, this is the one mistake that I made, and it was a big mistake, is I did not let that deer stop. I predicted he was going to stop. So it was so windy, I don't think he heard the map. So I went map, shot, rather than map, wait for the deer to stop, shoot. So when he hit my pin, I expected him to stop, so I shot. He didn't stop. He took another step. So I hit him about 10 inches back. Not a good shot right off the bat. Wasn't happy. But the second thought into my mind was dead deer. For sure, a dead deer. The next thing that he did was he sprinted into the food plot, and I could see a big entry hole. So that was good. I was happy with that. Trying to get another arrow in just in case I could get another shot at him, even if it was a long one. He didn't get in a good shooting window for me. So I just watched him. He cut into a draw, and I was able to watch him for about 100 yards. I saw the entrance again, and it had blood coming out of a big entrance hole. So I felt confident that this was a fatal hit. At that point, it was just a matter of how much time to give him. So that was at 2:20. So mind you, I got back in the tree at 2:00 with my binos, and I had an arrow in that deer at 2:20. So again, really early, first deer out. I made a phone call to my cousin who's hunting on that other spot on the farm, not too far away, and told him what happened. We kind of had some predictions on where he's going to go. A lot of deer have died in that draw that he went to. It's just a real thick draw between two food plots that they like to bed in, and they'll hang out there quite a bit. There's a good chance that he could have died right in there in his first or second bed. And then there's another bedding area about it's a big long tree planting that's about 15 years old. So it's a bunch of small saplings. It's really thick. There's a creek on one side. It's just a heavy bedding area that we tend to find a lot of dead deer in, from either obviously deer that we've hit or the neighbors. This was one of those scenarios where we knew we just had to wait, and if we played our cards right, we're going to find this deer. Never had a doubt in my mind that it wasn't fatal. And you even, said start the 24-hour clock, after I told you that I got a hit in one and where it was. And so that's what we did. We called a couple of dog trackers in the area. Obviously, this time of year, they are swamped. So just getting them on the phone is tough to do. But I give a shout out to those guys because they save a lot of hunters this time of year. But I talked to a couple of them just out of, it's like, hey, even if you can't help me, I'd really like to just get your opinion on the timestamp that we need to be here, that we need to be waiting here, right? And that gave me the confidence to do exactly that, which is wait 24 hours. So we waited 24 hours. We had a dog tracker on the way. We ended up going back down to the cabin while we beat him down there by about an hour or so. And we decided to just kind of drive down there, just check the area out. There's a lot of hunters around the area. We just want to check and see if we can check some fields, see if we see any big bucks rutting. And of course, we weren't hunting. My cousin worked that day, and I was just in wait mode, right? So I wasn't really interested in getting back out in the woods for even though I have a second buck tag, right? I was focused on this deer. And as we're driving down there, we drive past that second bedding area that I mentioned earlier, and two buzzards popped out of there, and it was right along a creek that borders that bedding area. And so we talked about it and we said, if we go in there, the main track where we think this deer is not boogered up. It's good for a dog. If we go in here and this deer is not there, then I don't think we messed anything up. So we literally just wanted to go in and we glassed a lot, and we were able to cover a lot of this bedding area with the glass instead of tracking across the whole thing. So I went in one side, my cousin went in the other, and I dropped him off on one side and he walked towards the truck and I walked away from the truck. And this is 100 yards wide and maybe 500 yards long. So we were able to cover it pretty quick with the two of us. I walked down one side, he walks down the other. Neither one of us had any luck. No blood, no nothing. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to make my way back your way. And I just took a little bit different route that's a little bit closer to where he was. And he was walking the edge of the creek, looking into the creek, expecting a deer to be down in the water, in the creek bed. And then he's glassing up into this bedding area at the same time. I came back through more in the bedding area, and I was about 60 yards away, and I called him. I said, all right, I didn't have any luck. I'm going to make my way back to the truck. We'll just wait for the dog to come in and go to the hit. And I hang up the phone, and 30 seconds later, I look over, and I'm like, that really looks like a tine with the naked eye, no binoculars. And then I was like, no, that is a tine. And I put the binos up, and I'm like, that's a pretty big tine. And I could just see 2 points sticking up out of a bunch of brush and weeds. And so I angle back to where I can see a little bit better. I get my arrow. I had an arrow knocked. I get my release on, not knowing if this is a dead deer or a live deer, if it's my deer. And I kind of take an angle over, and I could see a body that's laying down. Sure enough, is deader than a doornail. And then I was like, I don't know what deer it is. And then I could see the exit hole in the stomach. So it was at that point I knew it was my deer, and then I was able to knew it was dead. Took another step, and I could see those big split G2s.
Awesome, man.
And then it was a million pounds off my shoulders, right? So a lot of thought after the shot went into how are we going to recover this deer. So we were able to do it very uneventfully without wild goose chase.
Yeah. Well, you gave it time.
Was awesome. Yeah. We gave it a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, man, congratulations. And I think there's a lot of really key lessons in that for everyone on, you just got to be out there. You got to trust your gut. And then if something does not go right, you got to give the deer time, especially when you know where you hit them. And you did everything right there. So congratulations. So looking here, Illinois is a $2 state. So you still have a buck tag here in your pocket. Looking from the 19th to the day before Thanksgiving, what is top of mind here? Obviously, our gun season kicks off this upcoming weekend. What on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the activity is going to be? And if you're a guy in Illinois with a tag in your pocket, what do you tell that guy?
Yeah,
or gal?
I think I like it probably more than most Illinois hunters. I'm pretty partial to the second and third week of November as opposed to the first. And I know, trust me, we all love when that calendar turns over and the statistics on the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And I've killed on those days. More so, I should say I've killed on the 9th. I historically, on multiple farms that I've hunted, have seen more activity from the 10th through the 20th. And then you'll get into that gun season period, and we've had some really good gun seasons down there. Even if we don't harvest everything we have in mind, visual sightings just happen to uptick in that time frame. My personal opinion is, and there's a lot of opinions on it, but I really think a buck is most visible when he's between does, as opposed to looking for that first one. I think my opinion is that in the first week of November, we see a ton of rutting activity, but me personally, it's mostly small bucks that I have encounters with. The mature bucks, I think they snag those does without much effort. I think they snag those first does without effort, so they don't have to travel very far to get them. Whereas the small bucks got to work for it in that first week. And then the second and third does, whenever those bucks are coming off of the first one, I think that's when they're most vulnerable. And that's whenever I've seen and or killed more of my deer. I've got, I was actually just talking to a buddy about it the other day. The 13th, the 15th, the 18th, now the 11th. Obviously, I killed on the 11th. Those are the days of my 4 biggest bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're heading into the backside of that period that I really like. That being said, I think that if the weather's playing, the weather plays a big factor into it. I think that's going to matter if they rut or if they move during the day or at night. They're going to rut either way. I think coming into this gun season, I think it's going to be pretty good. I think most of our activity has been about a week or so behind where we would normally see it. I didn't see any mature bucks start to do much rutting activity until I think the 7th. I saw one mature buck bumping a doe, not even like super interested, like hot on her tail. I'm starting to see that now, both in the last couple days of hunting and on my cameras too. So I think I'd be pretty optimistic, and I'm naturally a pretty optimistic person, but I think that depending on what the weather's going to do in different pockets. So hunting 2 different areas in Illinois, it's pretty crazy. It'll be a 20-degree difference from where I live to the farm down south.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one reason I went down there, is because it got to 70 degrees. Like, it's 70 degrees down there now. And I was like, I'm going to hunt it while it's in the 40s, and up here it's going to be in the 50s. So I've got much better weather hunting up here whenever it's 70 down there. So if that weather's doing what it's, what you need it to do where you're hunting, I think there's a good chance if you're out there, if you can catch that buck between does, they're pretty vulnerable. I think that this buck was between does, and I saw him twice in about 25 hours. And I saw another mature buck doing the exact same thing. Did not have a doe with him, was cruising the woods. And I think there's a good chance that this gun season could be pretty good for a lot of guys in Illinois.
Yeah. Food or bedding, if you had, just for someone that's like, okay, I still have a tag. I'm going to be able to hunt maybe a bow hunt a couple days here before gun season, whether it's, Wednesday or Thursday. And then for the gun season, bedding, food, right place, right time, throw a dart.
Yeah. Well, everything's situational, right? Yeah, both, right? I like to hunt the does right now, and I'm not like hardcore got to be on the does, but that's what he's looking for. And I like to be, one big lesson that I've learned this year, and I kind of reflect and try to get better every year. I think we probably all do. And what I've realized this year is that if I have an encounter with a buck, I've got to do something similar to what he did, because he's going to do something similar too.
Mm-hmm.
If we both do the same thing, that deer's not going to do the same thing 2 days in a row. I mean, the exact same thing. I think he's going to do something similar. He's going to be in the area, but if I just go do the exact same thing, I don't think I'm going to be in the chips. And what I've decided this year is be more mobile. So I've got a saddle set up, I've got a hang and bang, I've got lock-ons, I've got ground blinds, I've got box blinds. I've got all the tools that I can think of to put me in the right spot, wherever that is. I've got hang-ons that I just think I want to get a visual on them, and then I can make a move from there. Mm-hmm. That's one of my big takeaways this year is mature bucks are not on a pattern this time of year, but they are in an area, and they do kind of tend to stick to that area if they found a doe there and they've been in the area, they're going to look for another doe in that same area. So I like to just move around with what the wind allows me to do and what the thermals allow me to do. And that's exactly what I did on that buck the other day. I knew he was going to be in the same area. I knew we had a really good chance to see him again. So my job was to get in the right spot per the wind and hope that he makes the right move. And, all the stars aligned.
Perfect. Well, man, congratulations once again. And good luck to everyone out there with the tag still here. In Illinois firearms season, it is an exciting time to be out in the woods. And it's just it's opening days is truly one of those days of the year where you just truly don't know what could happen, good or bad.
Anything can happen.
Awesome. Well, congratulations once again, Shane.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
There you guys have it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Rut Fresh. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I hope you get a chance to sneak out and do a little bit more deer hunting. If it is a firearm season for you, like it is here in Illinois this upcoming weekend, be safe, be a good neighbor, be a good friend, and we'll see you next time.